Right now, we want to bring in Jessie Jane Duff, retired gunnery sergeant with the U.S. Marine Corps. Thank you so much for joining us, as always. Based on what you're hearing about this potential deal with the Taliban, are you encouraged? Is it enough to warrant bringing home thousands of troops?
Well, you have two sides of this. One side that is advocating for troop levels to remain the same essentially believes that this is a hotbed for terrorism growth. They feel that our presence there can substantially influence whether they were to do an attack on our forces, our country, or our allies. And as long as we have a presence there, they feel we can suppress it. However, the president is very clear. We've been there 19 years. At what point is it a war, or now have we become a police state? And I think the relationship that we have to establish now is, are we going to continually be reactive, or are we going to start becoming proactive? I think the president is very clear that it's time for our troop levels to decrease, and that we have an encouraging relationship of some sort with the Taliban, which we have never had before.
What do you make of Senator Lindsey Graham's tweet saying this, quote, "Mr. President, keep your foot on their throat. A meaningful counterterrorism force is an insurance policy against another 9/11. Fight them there so they don't ever come here again." What do you think about that?
You know, that sounds good. It's great rhetoric, and I love Lindsey Graham. He's been a great supporter of the president and our national security. At the same time, the president is right. At what point are we going to ensure that we establish a relationship with our allied forces so that they can be taking part in this? And it's not just U.S. forces that are continually being killed. We have to ensure that the relationship with Afghanistan stops the rebuilding of terrorism activity. Taliban is very strong there. This is a type of structure that you're not going to change. You're not going to westernize their thinking. You're not going to change them into a democracy. So I'm very confident that the relationship that this president is building through our former ambassador, who's been negotiating with the Taliban, they're very steady, they're very consistent, and they're taking a very slow, measured process. The American people know that when they elected President Trump, they wanted us to no longer be involved in these long-running, expensive, and life-costing wars for America.
So while there may be this potential deal with the Taliban, what do you think about the growing threat of ISIS in the region? Because that seems to be talked about a little bit more. Is that a wild card?
No, the ISIS is going to reestablish itself on some levels. Now, they don't have the caliphate foundation that they had originally started with. However, we do know that ISIS has presence throughout the world. It's not just Syria or Iraq. ISIS and many of these other terrorist strongholds are not going to disappear overnight. This is the new world threat that we are going to have to learn how to manage, how to be able to defend ourselves against. And this type of warfare has changed from where we were in all previous wars. So where we're at today is we understand that these type of terrorist activities are going on in Africa, they're going on in the Middle East, and they're going on in Southeast Asia and the Philippines, throughout the world. We have to be steadfast, but our forces can't be the only ones dying for this.
All right, Jessie Jane Duff, retired gunnery sergeant with the U.S. Marine Corps. Thank you so much, as always.